Hi everyone, my name is Taiwo Oyemade.
And my name is John Kenny Oyemade.
I'd like to welcome
Kehinde
you
Oyemade.
all. God, why is it so long now?
My name is Oyemade John Kehinde, aka John Kenny.
aka Global Music Producer.
Why am I the only person that was always
You're the one that just did that long name just now. What do you expect me? How do you expect me to respond?
Thinking that because you are Oyemade,
My name is just Taiwo Oyemade. I'm just an ordinary guy.
Because people call me John Kenny. John Kenny is not my
humble
John Kenny is not the name my
disciple of Jesus Christ.
My parents named me Oyemade. Is it my parents name? Maybe I named myself. But my full name is Oyemade Kehinde, Oyemade John Kehinde, aka John Kenny.
I'd like to welcome all of you to the Gospel Culture Show.
Gospel Culture Show.
Hosting here on the Revival and Reformation TV. This show holds every Thursday at 2 p.m.
West African time.
West African time, yes. We are coming to you from the city of Lagos,
Yes,
Nigeria, Africa's largest city, Africa's tech hub,
Africa's best city,
best
gospel city,
traffic intense city. This is the headquarters of the Christian.
The headquarters of the Christian faith in the world right now. The biggest churches in the world are in Nigeria.
The biggest black city in the world.
The richest pastors are in Nigeria.
And projected to be the most populated city in the world.
The most anointed gospel ministers in music are in Nigeria. Our contexts are different. You're talking about economic. I'm talking about the gospel.
What are you going on about?
And those things, the biggest way to define
everything about Lagos is the
richest church in the world is in Nigeria.
By the way, also it's the city with the highest unemployment rates in Africa.
And no power.
Anyways, our one is not even load shedding. If you go to Africa, you talk about load shedding.
We love our city. We love our country. We are diehard fans of this country.
Yeah, we love this city.
And when this country gets better through the gospel, we will be standing here
by the grace of
saying,
God.
We said so, God said so.
Anyways, let's continue our conversation before Pastor JK gets.
By the way, we need to make an apology about our downstream and our upstream analogy.
I'm sure somebody left a comment already about it.
We have mistook it.
So.
And you see, I was speaking so confidently about upstream.
No. The idea is what's needed. But it was
so when it comes to oil exploration, upstream is everything from the
exploration,
mining,
no exploitation, exploration,
mineral exploitation. I know what I'm saying.
Mineral exploration.
I'm about to create another confusion.
My God.
Then
supply, distribution
is downstream.
But I'm sure you get the message from
even
our last
even as I say that after research, I'm still not sure. Just Google this thing and be sure. So what we meant by everything we said in the last episode about the downstream
of faith
of grace.
Of grace, yeah.
Actually, it's supposed to be the upstream of grace, and then the downstream will be moving to the downstream of grace later on.
And it's really exciting for me that people can give that kind of feedback.
Yeah,
I'm really excited. Which is why we say leave your comments. When you leave your comments, you help us better understand. Call our attention to things that perhaps we're not paying so much attention to.
I mean, it came as a spur of the moment. It's not like it was in our notes. So thank you for understanding.
So we want to continue our conversation about grace.
Yep.
Today.
Yes.
Over to you, Pastor JK.
I mean, in the last episode, what we ended the episode with was the fact that we wanted to explore how grace comes about. And Pastor was saying that he wanted us to explore the analogy that Jesus Christ gave in John chapter 3.
Yes.
When he was talking to Nicodemus, and he goes to a point where he says,
not Nicodemus,
Nicodemus. Those of you who went to Children Church, you should be able to correct us by a voice note or something.
Leave a comment.
I'll give you a comment. So Christ was speaking to Nicodemus that as Moses lifted up the bronze snake in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And then so we want to go into what really happened in that event. All this so we can understand how grace comes.
It's Numbers 21 from verse 4.
Yes,
the Bible says, Then the people of Israel set out from Mount Hor, taking the road to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. But the people grew impatient with the long journey and they began to speak against God and Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die here in the wilderness? They complained. There's nothing to eat here and nothing to drink. And we ate and we hate this horrible manna. The same manna people are asking for today.
Wow.
So the Lord sent poisonous snakes among the people.
Yeah.
And many were beaten and died. Then the people cried to Moses. Came to Moses and cried out, "We have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray that the Lord will not will take away the snakes. So Moses prayed for the people.
Yes.
Then the Lord told him, make a replica of a poisonous snake and attach it to a pole. All who are bitten will live if they simply look at it.
If they simply look at it.
All who are bitten will live if they simply look at it. So Moses made a snake out of bronze and attached it to a pole. And anyone who was bitten by a snake could look at the bronze snake and be healed. It's remarkable. This story, one of the best stories I know in scripture. And I'm a very sentimental person.
Yeah.
When I said best stories, it's because Jesus refers to
yeah,
it.
of course.
Don't mind me, I'm like that.
Yeah.
Any story Jesus refers to, money. Sorry, I have to know the story.
And look at verse 8. Then the Lord told him, make a replica of a poisonous snake and attach it to a pole. All who are bitten will live.
Make a replica of the poisonous snake
and attach it to a pole. You see, make a replica.
There's a lot of theological position
in
this passage.
Keyword there, replica.
Yeah.
Keyword, pole.
Pole. The cross. Another Adam.
Second Adam, replica.
Yeah.
Pole. Then anyone who was bitten by a snake, who is suffering the consequence of sin, because sin is what brought them here.
Yes, disobedience.
They rebelled against God and against Moses. And anyone who was bitten by a snake could look at the bronze snake and be healed. The person that Christ was speaking to,
Nicodemus,
teacher of teachers.
I was going to get there.
Teacher of teachers.
If you were chosen and the way they portrayed him, you will know that he's not just any teacher. Which is why Christ was even saying, you, John, are a well-respected teacher.
Exactly.
Jesus said that about Nicodemus. Like,
yes.
I know
John 3 verse 10, you are a respected Jewish teacher.
I mean, Jesus will not say that to just anybody. Yeah. So for someone like him, this story would have resonated as
Exactly.
And what led to this story? There was a pushback in Nicodemus' mind.
Yeah.
Not rebellious, confusion. Jesus told him, a man be born again.
And it's like,
that word born again came out. And Nicodemus could not understand.
And he expressed his confusion, like, am I supposed to go back into my mother's womb and be born again?
And this is one of the ways we know that stories in the Bible are not just mere stories. You know what you're reading just now? You're saying is scripture just for nothing. John chapter 4, just read now.
Yeah, James 4.
James 4. Scripture is not just for nothing.
Yeah.
All these stories are pointing to something.
Yeah.
In fact, the people that were in the story themselves, if they had foresight of what God was doing, they realized that their entire life in the wilderness would explain something that will happen to billions of people.
Now, here's something interesting. Jesus Christ did not mention the word grace here in John 3.
No, he did not.
He says, John 3 verse 14, and as Moses lifted up the bronze snake on a pole in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. But it did not end with the Son of Man being lifted up.
Yes.
Because it also did not end in Numbers 21 with this bronze snake
just being lifted up. Yeah.
The following action, so that anyone who believes in him. So let's look at the events of the bronze snake. What happened? They have sinned. But God.
And what was the sin?
They said
idolize
food, and they said
it's a sin of idolatry.
I mean, so
much so that they hated
what God was
the
offering.
food God gave them.
Now, where does grace come into this picture? Grace comes into this picture in the fact that God offers a help to man in that sin, and men must not despise the help that God is offering. What do I mean? It will be ridiculous. For most people that are in that place, it will sound ridiculous. And how are we going to be rescued from this punishment that we're experiencing?
By merely looking
up at the snake. It is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's outrageous.
It is outrageous. Some would protest and die. What would they say? Moses, give us something better than this.
Those who will protest and die will fundamentally protest and die on the basis of the fact that it did not make
any sense. And so
the same way the gospel today is not going to make any sense.
And that is why it was important that we understood that James chapter 4. Let me
God rejects the proud.
He says, James chapter 4, he says, and he gives grace generously, as the scriptures say. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. The humble,
it takes humility.
Thank you very much. You get my point.
To accept
so in that scene,
word from
in
God
that particular situation, the humble ones would humbly just look up. The fundamental problem I'm facing when you put today is that many even after understanding the gravity of their sin, that the fact that they were born sinners because of the fact that they were born to
They
Adam.
want to be able to do something.
You get my point?
To atone for their
That's
own sin.
when we say you don't have to do
God.
anything but believe in the gospel, believe in the
doesn't
Son.
add up.
They can't humble themselves.
And this miraculous story is one of those stories that will have helped the average Jew accept the ministry of Jesus.
And let me tell you, referencing our upstream and our downstream grace model,
Credited to Pastor John Kenny.
that I almost blew in last episode, but just follow me here. It is going to be humility.
Humility past
Every time.
humility past the human threshold.
The story with
Humility to a point of foolishness.
Foolishness. Look at the events that we described in Corinthians chapter 8 when Paul was saying that there's a certain weakness. How can someone like Paul, do you know the kind of things that he had been doing for God?
You now understand when Paul was opening to letter to the Corinthians and he says the message of the cross is foolishness. For those who are for some who are wise,
Yes.
this message is foolish to them. But I'm particularly, there's a part I want to highlight.
Viewers, please listen. This thing is very, very important.
And I really want to hear your comments.
Grace is accessed fundamentally by humility
By humility,
towards God.
and it is free.
And guess what?
It is free.
Guess what?
It is free.
Yes, it is free. There's even grace from men. There's even there's because we can't deny that as God gives grace, even men too give grace.
Men are gracious.
Truly, even grace from men too is accessed by humility.
You know the interesting thing about this story, for me, the most striking thing about this story is that it's a leveler.
Yeah.
Everybody in that scene
Yeah.
everybody in the nation were experiencing this problem. And God says, look up at the bronze snake. In that moment in time, you know, some people must have been the ones that actually did the voicing out of the complaint.
Yeah.
Some people,
Maybe not everybody.
some people would have just said, I agree, and they joined the problem. Some people, all they just needed to do was, I was present. You know, there's this funny joke. Oshuju Elason, 1 million.
As in,
Like, you were just there when they were doing the complaining, and you don't push back like some people did.
Yeah.
Like Caleb. Remember now, out of 12 spies, it's Caleb now. Joshua and Caleb.
Yeah, of course.
They pushed back and said, have faith in God.
I mean,
you can take this land.
Even Levites too.
During the when they sacrificed to God, when Moses was on the mountain.
Yeah.
So just that you were there in that moment in time, it did not matter. As long as you are part of the people, you were gonna have a problem with God. And everybody was suffering alike for the sin that just a handful of people must have committed by going to go and confront Moses.
It's just descriptive of Adam and Eve.
And also, when the solution came, he didn't say, some of you, your sin is worse than some other people. Some of you have to go and touch the snake, or use your head to touch the snake, or lick it, or crush some of the bones and make it powder and swallow it, or even bow to the snake. Everybody who was being impacted by the problem of disobedience needed to just look up at the snake and they will be fine.
They'll be fine.
And that is grace.
That is grace.
Undeserved. Unmerited.
Unmeritable.
You know, unmeritable. Like, meritable speaks of what you can now do.
Yes.
Merited is what has been done.
Yeah. Yes.
No, everybody. And so, in the moment Christ told that story to Nicodemus, a man who was well versed in scripture, who has done a lot of exposition on that particular story.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you are a Pharisee, you must be well versed in the stories of Moses.
Yes.
Moses
Numbers
is the foundation of the nation.
Yes.
And this story is such a very important story because it was a bizarre one.
Yes.
He would have understood what it meant by being born again.
That's that.
See,
so what Christ essentially said to Nicodemus is that if you want to be born again, you have to humbly believe in the Son.
However, it
is not
impragmatic or unpragmatic.
And mind you, we are speaking about this in terms of salvation.
Yeah.
How about grace for every area of our lives? When we talk about maybe grace, maybe you are feeling weak in a certain regard.
Yeah.
Because I've often described weakness as two things. There is weakness in terms of, say, you don't have strength. There's weakness that you are struggling with something and the thing keeps